Alright folks, let's set the scene. In London, England, MI6 agent Hattie Shaw leads her team on a mission to retrieve a lethal virus called the Snowflake created by a tech terrorist organization known as Eteon. They are instructed to use electrical rounds on the soldiers securing the virus, as they will have to be interrogated afterwards. Hattie and her team infiltrate the warehouse and are able to access the virus from its metal coffer. Just then a super soldier named Brixton Lore approaches the warehouse and intercepts their mission. Brixton is a former MI6 agent who later became a super soldier under Eteon. Eteon has provided Brixton with cybernetic enhancements allowing him to see through the incoming attacks. In an instant, he easily subdues and assassinates the MI6 agents. Hattie tries to escape with a metal coffer by driving the truck away, but to no avail. She is then forced to inject the Snowflake in her body before escaping from Brixton. Later, Brixton grabs a radio from one of the MI6 agents, framing Hattie for killing her team and fleeing with a Snowflake. Upon the arrival of his fellow soldiers, Brixton orders them to be careful in apprehending Hattie since she is a skilled agent. Elsewhere, Luke, Hobbs and Shaw wake up from their respective homes in Los Angeles and London, going about their daily routines. Hobbs is a former agent of the Diplomatic Security Service, while Shaw is an ex-British military officer and MI6 agent. After receiving a call from their superiors, the two later arrive at separate nightclubs where they each fight a group of thugs to interrogate. Hobbs traps one of the thugs on a tattoo chair while Shaw hangs a man by the window. Both Hobbs and Shaw heard of the lethal virus and know that it was created by Eteon. On the other hand, the two thugs failed to give them any more relevant information. So Hobbs tattoos on the man's forehead as Shaw leaves his guy hanging out the window. The next day, Hobbs eats breakfast with his 9-year-old daughter, Sam, in a diner in Los Angeles. Hobbs is delighted to see Sam's trade to test results, but is subtly saddened when she shows him her family tree assignment. She brings up a childhood picture of Hobbs with his brother, Jonah, saying that she wanted to include him in the family tree. Sam asks her father why he does not talk about his family in Samoa, and Hobbs vaguely answers her question. Eventually, Hobbs assures Sam that the two of them are family and that it is more than enough. Later, Hobbs is approached by an old friend and CIA agent Locke. Locke recruits Hobbs on a mission to locate Hattie and secure the Snowflake. In Sam's presence, Locke proceeds to reveal sensitive information explaining that the Snowflake is a programmable virus that can liquefy a person's internal organs. Locke gives Hobbs a folder containing information on Hattie and the virus, mentioning that Hattie is deadly for allegedly killing her entire I-16. Hobbs is reluctant to accept the mission, but Locke makes him realize how serious of a threat it is, eventually making him agree. Around the same time in London, Shaw comes to prison to visit his mother Magdalene, who goes by her alias Queenie. During the visit, Shaw teases his mother, claiming that her skills have waned if she can no longer break out of prison. In reply, Queenie says that she is already comfortable in the facility and wants to consider it her retirement. She adds that her stay in prison would be much more pleasant if you bought her a birthday cake. Later, Queenie asks Shaw about Hattie, who happens to be his younger sister. She encourages Shaw to reach out to his sister, but Shaw thinks Hattie does not want to see him. As it turns out, Hattie has turned against Shaw after she had heard about his alleged betrayal to his MI6. Queenie then mentions how she wishes Shaw could visit her in prison one day with Hattie. Outside the prison, another CIA agent named Loeb approaches Shaw. Shaw immediately dismisses Loeb, seemingly aware that he works for the CIA. In turn, Loeb flashes a picture of Hattie stopping Shaw from driving away. He recruits Shaw and explains to him the same mission of finding Hattie and retrieving the Snowflake. Loeb adds that they have to find Hattie before the MI6 just because the MI6 have already treated her like a traitor. As Loeb reminds Shaw that his sister needs help. Shaw later agrees to help on the mission. Meanwhile, Hattie has become a fugitive following MI6 issued order to have her killed. She leaves her apartment planning a booby trap for the assailant who will track her home. Afterwards, agents Loeb and Locke talk through the phone, seemingly worried as Hobbs and Shaw have a petty rivalry in the past. Regardless, the two of them are convinced that Hobbs and Shaw can set aside their differences to save the world. But as Hobbs and Shaw come face to face in the CIA black site in London, the two immediately express their dismay in having to work together. The two begin to exchange insults towards one another until a CIA agent intervenes. Refusing to work together, Shaw leaves the black site and heads to look for Hattie in her apartment. He finds the booby trap that Hattie left and safely enters the place. Just then, Shaw is attacked by agents who are trying to kill Hattie. Shaw fails to find Hattie but easily subdues the agents in the apartment. Hobbs, on the other hand, examines all the CCTV cameras around London and decides to go to the places that the cameras don't cover. He then finds Hattie on her way out of a hotel. Despite her disguise, Hobbs asks Hattie to come with him to the CIA black site. But Hattie refuses. Hattie skillfully restrains and initiates a scuffle. but Hobbs defeats her and brings her into custody. Back in the CIA black site, Hobbs interrogates Hattie on the whereabouts of the Snowflake, but Hattie refuses to talk to him because he is not a CIA agent. Hobbs steps out of the interrogation room for a quick phone call with his daughter Sam. While he is away, Hattie unties herself and aggressively attacks a CIA agent. Hobbs runs back to the room and fights Hattie just as Shaw arrives at the black site to stop them. Shaw informs Hobbs that Hattie is his sister, and Hattie later shares that the Snowflake is inside her body. She is about to leave the black site to find a way to extract the virus. When Brixton and his team of Eteon soldiers suddenly show up, Brixton quickly takes Hattie with him and walks down the building with a harness. Thus, Hobbs and Shaw begrudgingly work together as they chase after Brixton. Hobbs jumps down the building, allowing Hattie to get away from Brixton. When Hobbs and Brixton reach the ground, the two continue with their fight, but Brixton quickly overpowers Hobbs using his cybernetic eyes. As Shaw shoots at Brixton, he grows surprised to see him. For a while, Shaw believed that Brixton, his former MI6 partner, was already dead. Brixton later expresses how Shaw could have joined him in working for Eteon, claiming that Eteon made him better. Just then Hobbs steals an explosive from an Eteon soldier and slides it near Brixton. The explosion allows Shaw to escape with Hobbs and Hay in his McLaren, but Brixton immediately chases after them using his customized motorbike. After a while of continuous pursuit, Shaw is able to trick Brixton, making him slam through a bus. Britain's motorbike is thus destroyed, prompting him to abandon the chase. He returns to the Eteon headquarters and hacks through all the news agencies, releasing a false story on Hobbs and Shaw attacking the CIA black site. Afterwards, Brixton speaks to the mysterious leader of Eteon known as the Director. The Director commands Brixton to continue with his mission to extract the virus from Hattie and use it to eliminate the weaker half of humanity. Brixton is also instructed to convince Hobbs and Shaw into joining Eteon, so they can work for the same cause of creating a perfect system for humanity. Around the same time, Hattie, Hobbs and Shaw abandon them Clarion to prevent being tracked. They walk along the streets and see that Eteon has manipulated the media, declaring all of them as fugitives. Hattie leaves the two of them to find Professor Andrico, a Russian scientist who created the Snowflake. Hobbs stops her, revealing that he was already tracking an Andrico before the attack. Later on, Hobbs and Shaw corner Andrico at a newsstand as they insist on talking to him about the Snowflake. Hattie shows her hand to Andrico and concludes that the capsules containing the virus are still intact. However, Andrico adds that in less than 2 days, the capsules will dissolve and infect Hattie and later become airborne. Andrico explains that he only created the Snowflake thinking that the Eteon wanted to save the world through vaccines. But later on, Eteon reprogrammed it as a bioweapon. The only options they have to extract the Snowflake from Hattie is either to kill her or get it out of her through the extracting machine in the Eteon Weapons and Biotech facility in Ukraine. Shaw brings Hattie and Hobbs in his arsenal to lay low and avoid being tracked. Shaw also creates new identities for the three of them and alters their biometrics before boarding a commercial flight to Moscow to meet Shaw's contact. During the flight, Shaw warns Hobbs to stay away from her sister Hattie after noticing that he is attracted to her. Their argument is interrupted by Air Marshal Dinky, who immediately figures out their identities. He also deduces that the two of them are on a mission and insists on helping them. Before parting ways, Dinky gives them his calling card, offering his services in case they need anything. That same day, Professor Andrico was on his way home when Brixton shows up in front of him. Brixton kidnaps Andrico and takes him to the E facility, forcing him to perform the extraction on Hattie. In Moscow, Shaw, Hobbs and Hattie meet with a high-profile thief named Margarita, commonly referred to as Madame M. The three find Madame M in a mansion owned by Russian mobsters where she and her group have raided firearms and protected gear. While planning their attack, they realize that it would be easier to just deliver Hattie to the facility rather than doing a large-scale assault. Thus, Madame M and her group escorts Hattie directly to Brixton in order to have her straight to the virus-extracting machine. Meanwhile, Shaw and Hobbs ride a jet plane on the way to the Eteon Weapons and Biotech facility. As they reach the facility, they eject themselves from the jet and parachute their way inside. Inside, they plant a time bomb before entering through separate doors and fighting armed men. Hobbs and Shaw manage to pass through but are then cornered by Brixton and a large number of Eteon soldiers who knock both of them unconscious. The two wake up bound in electrical cables and surrounded by Eteon soldiers, as Brixton begins to interrogate them. Brixton later mentions that the Director wants them to join Eteon. But Hobbs and Shaw taunt Brixton, emphasizing that they are just a cult who mercilessly kills people. He proceeds to torture Hobbs and Shaw through electric shocks, with each additional shock ensuring her imminent deaths. Around the same time, Hattie is taken inside the extraction room where she finds Professor Andrico along with two other Eteon soldiers. Using a pin on her necklace, Hattie frees herself from her binds and subdues the 2 soldiers guarding her. Andrico assists her into escaping the room and the 2 of them flee with the extracting machine. On their way out, Hattie sees Hobbs and her brother being tortured by Brixton. To her surprise, she overhears Brixton talking about Shaw's betrayal to MI6, which turns out to be fabricated. Feeling troubled that she disowned her closest brother over a false story, Hattie disguises herself as one of the Eteon soldiers and points a gun at Brixton. However, she is unable to shoot Brixton because all Eteon guns require activation chips. Just then, Andrico enters the room with a flamethrower burning Brixton along with a few Eteon soldiers. Hobbs and Shaw free themselves during the commotion and they ride in separate vehicles, hurriedly escaping the facility with Hattie and the extraction device. At that moment, the time bomb activates, self-destructing the entire Eteon weapons in biotech facility. Brixton gets away with the burn and kills Professor Andrico before riding his motorbike in pursuit of the trio. As the chase goes on, Shaw tosses Hattie over at Hobbs' truck. Shaw later reunites with Hattie and Hobbs on the truck when Brixton shows up behind them. Hattie takes over the truck driving it while Hobbs joins Shaw in fighting Brixton. The 2 team up to defeat Brixton, but he continues to overpower them. While the 3 are able to get away through a huge rubble that falls over Brixton, the rubble also causes the extraction device to be destroyed. Hattie is convinced that she must be killed before the snowflake in her body spreads. But Shaw instantly protests. Hobbs stares at his old photo with his brother Jonah in deep contemplation before telling Shaw and Hattie that he knows a place where they can lay low. Hobbs, Hattie and Shaw then travel to Samoa Hobbs' childhood home with the help of Air Marshal Dinky. Despite being estranged from his family, Hobbs shares that Jonah is the best mechanic he knows, convinced that he can fix the extraction device. Jonah and their other brothers, Mateo, Timo and Cal, grow surprised to see Hobbs show up in Samoa after being absent for 25 years. He immediately punches Hobbs in the face, intent on sending him away out of pent-up anger. As Jonah continues to argue with Hobbs, their mother, Sefina, interrupts them and insists on welcoming Hobbs inside the house. Hobbs then explains to his family how he was framed, telling them about Eteon and the deadly virus. He also asks Jonah to fix the extraction device that can help prevent the spread of the virus. Jonah protests in disbelief towards his brother, as Hobbs asks everyone in their family to set aside their arguments because saving the world is more important. Hobbs emphasizes that the virus could kill everyone in Samoa and the whole world, prompting Sefina to help Hobbs. Sefina stops Jonah from further complaining, instructing everyone to prepare themselves for the arrival of Brixton and the soldiers. During their preparation, Hobbs tells Hattie that his father was involved in various crimes and that he was training him and their brothers to engage in such activities. Hobbs, however, did not want himself and his brothers to turn to a life of crime. Thus, Hobbs devoted his time to being a loyal, law-abiding citizen and turned his own father to the authorities. Afterwards, Hobbs left Samoa and never came back, making Jonah and their brothers feel abandoned. Later, Jonah takes Hobbs and Hattie to their workshop, explaining that they now have a legitimate automobile repair shop that caters to international customers. Hattie takes the extraction device to Jonah and he attempts to have it fixed. Hobbs brings Shaw and Hattie to their armory only to find out that it is now full of traditional Samoan weapons. Sefina then explains that she got rid of all the guns because of the damage it is causing her family. She declares that as Samoans, they will fight using their bare hands and hearts. They end up resorting to the traditional weapons while Hattie tries to hack through the server to try to disable their firearms. Together with Hobbs' brothers, he and Shaw spend the day creating a kill box, holes and explosives for their assailants. At dawn, Jonah successfully repairs the extraction device, beginning to extract the snowflake from Hattie. Their celebration is cut short when their alarm sounds, signaling the arrival of Brixton and Eteon soldiers. Right before they engage in battle, Hobbs approaches Jonah and apologizes to him for abandoning their family. Hobbs promises Jonah that he will never let it happen again if they survive the battle. Jonah accepts his apology and the 2 of them reconcile with a hug. On the other side, Hattie also apologizes to Shaw for turning her back on him for a long time, and the 2 are able to quickly rekindle their relationship. Hobbs and the Simmons come face to face with Brixton standing proudly as they engage in battle. The Eteon soldiers try to shoot them, but Hattie has all their guns disabled. Hobbs gives out a battle cry along with his brothers before attacking Brixton and the soldiers using their explosives and traditional weapons. Hattie, in the meantime, is waiting for the extraction process to be completed when she is attacked by Eteon soldiers. She fights alongside Shaw and is able to prevent the process from being disrupted. However, Brixton finds Hay and forcefully takes her to the chopper. Shaw sees Brixton about to escape with her sister, so he rides with Hobbs together in a truck. Hobbs loses the chains from the truck and throws it over the chopper to prevent it from flying up. Brixton throws the pilot out of the chopper and takes over himself. Before Brixton could overpower their truck, Jonah and their brothers arrive on their own vehicles. The brothers hook their vehicles together, adding more weight to drag down the chopper. Brixton manages to detach the brothers' vehicles but eventually crashes down the cliff along with Hobbs and Shaw's truck. He checks Hattie and finds that the extraction process will be completed in 3 minutes. Brixton instructs an Eteon soldier to clip a device on her heart when it finishes. But as soon as the snowflake is out of her body, she subdues the soldier and kills him. At the same time, Hobbs and Shaw show up in front of Brixton ensuing a battle. Despite their continuous tries, the two failed to land an attack on him. They then realize that Brixton will only see through their every move. So Hobbs and Shaw take turns letting one of them take a hit while the other strikes. This causes Brixton's cybernetic programming to overload until he is no longer able to see their attacks. When they have Brixton subdued, Shaw and Hobbs don't kill him but insist that they believe in people who have heart rather than machines. Having been able to witness the entire battle in Samoa, the Eteon director shuts Brixton down and he dies falling on the sea. Through the remains of the chopper, the director speaks to Hobbs, Shaw and Hattie claiming that they will be keeping an eye on them. Back outside the Hobbs residence, the Samoans successfully make the remaining soldiers surrender and they cheer for their victory. In the aftermath of the battle, Hattie and Shaw return to London to surprise their mother, Queenie. They visit her together in prison, bringing her a birthday cake which contains an item to be used in breaking out. Meanwhile, Hobbs brings his daughter Sam to Samoa. He introduces her to Safina, Jonah and the rest of their family, deciding on staying there for the time being. During the mid-credit scene, Agent Locke calls Hobbs again right after fighting with other Eteon agents. He informs Hobbs that the Snowflake virus is concealed in a secure asset vault, but that there is another deadly virus which now affects the outer parts of the body. Locke asks for him and Shaw to help deal with the virus just when rapid gunshots fire at Locke's office. So, that's it. Be sure to comment with your thoughts below. If the video feels good, then like this video. Finally, don't forget to subscribe to our channel, and don't forget to click the bell icon to be notified of our latest videos. Thank you for watching this video and have a nice day.